This episode is brought to you by Classical Conversations. To find out more, please visit classicalconversations.com. Cross Politic begins in 3, 2, 1.
I need to say something, don't I? Don't I?
You know how this works?
Come on, man.
Okay, this is how it works.
Wake up.
Usually, I play this little thing. You want to try it again?
I'm so sorry, guys.
Because I'm not cutting this. I'm just going to let it roll. I'm just going to let it roll. You just let me know when we're ready.
Just make it up.
Yeah, I forgot.
You got to do a note? Okay, we're sorry, everybody. We're going to start the show in just a second. Y'all just keep liking and sharing everything.
This is live, right?
This is live.
Are you ready?
Y'all just like and share the show, and then it's going to, when Gabe is ready, we're going to just kick the whole thing.
Every
See,
time,
we haven't done this in a while. We've been like going on.
It's because you've been gone.
But no, I've been gone. We had a tour. We did our Midwest tour, right?
We did our
All
great
right. 3,
2019
tour. He's ready.
We got Joshua Harris not coming on the show. Dordt College, what is wrong with you?
Oh, what?
Dordt.
I don't know who Dordt is.
It's a
Dordt?
college, yeah, man.
Okay.
Hey, brother Phil Johnson, we got some words.
He's coming
from Phil.
on. He's coming back.
Home, Beth Moore.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
And Jen Wilkins. Wilkins. Well, there we go. Hey, y'all. We're not all put together here. We've been traveling the last 3 weeks.
Forgot how to do the show.
Yeah, we forgot how to do the show.
Yeah,
it's
fine.
great to be back, though, in the studio.
Oh, my goodness.
Pastor Toby Chalk Knox, the water boy, and campus preacher Keith. St. Keith.
St.
Apparently.
Keith.
St.
Yeah,
Keith.
St. Keith.
St. Keith.
Yeah, St. Keith.
Are you Catholic now or something?
No, but
You in sainthood?
How many
my
miracles you
host,
done?
my host here in Moscow, they were on campus with me one time, and the student said, "Well, aren't you a sinner?" I said, "No, I'm a saint." So ever since then, I've been St. Keith to them. So
I like that.
yeah,
That's great.
St. Keith. So
Hey, we got, of course, our corporate sponsor right now, One Hat Technologies.
Technologies. Hey, look, they even sent us a hat.
Because they are not
That's
a
the only one they
clothing
have.
company.
And actually, not a clothing company.
Yes.
It's a tech software development company. Their motto is craftsmanship to the glory of God. They make software. They build custom apps of all kinds, business apps, mobile apps.
they got
web
one in the works
apps,
for us.
Desktop apps.
We're working on
He
that.
is he's actually now helping us with our app.
Is he?
He is.
Man.
He's a boy.
You're a good
Go
person.
One Hat.
Yes.
So if you're in the market to have a new app developed, you should definitely check out One Hat. One Hat also builds custom websites, provides hosting solutions of all sizes. I might need to talk to them. One Hat's core values are truth, goodness, and beauty, which shine forth in every app they create. They are striving to live out the lordship of Jesus Christ in the technology world. So if you'd like to have a new mobile app or business app or website made, visit onehat.com/crosspolitic today. That's onehat.com/crosspolitic.
And he's fantastic to work with. He's actually helping us on our app now because our app guy who's helping us moved his family to Israel to
Oh, he getting ready for the
go
rapture?
in school.
That's what he doing?
Look, I got to put an app together. Getting out of here.
That would never even occur to me. That's how we're in different planets. You're like,
Did you ever see Phil Robinson had this ministry where he'd raise money
To send people-
fund plane tickets to send Jews back from America to the promised land
to
fulfill prophecy.
in order to try to get Jesus to come
fulfill
home.
prophecy.
Come back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, hey, we're also going to be
A G3.
possibly at G3 in January, and that's all we're going to say at this point.
We're supposed to be G3.
You guys, make sure you guys support the club. We actually traveled the last couple weeks. We were at a conference in Reform Con
Yes,
in
out there
Arizona,
with
and then we
apologies.
were
It was our great tour.
It was a great tour. And then we were at
Phoenix.
We were at
and Seattle.
Seattle,
And now we're home.
And by the way, there's 3 or 4 solid churches in Seattle. I was really
You say
encouraged.
only 3 or 4.
Come
Well,
on.
that we know of.
Come on.
That I know
Come
of.
on.
I'm
Come
not saying
on.
there's probably more than that.
Yeah.
But I was just
He meant
encouraged to see.
34.
I
He
was,
meant 34.
I was-
It's a Texan thing.
I was just
34.
encouraged to actually see the connection and love of the brethren and the unity.
It was great.
Between it was Reformed Baptist all the way to Presbyterian. It was really cool.
Right, all the way.
All the way. It's I mean, the
All the way
spectrum.
across the aisle.
Spectrum. Reformed Baptist to Presbyterian is incredible. And so that was really neat. And then yesterday I was actually down in California doing some things that I can't really talk about yet, but it was a because of our club members, we're able to do some of this. So
Praise God.
Yeah.
So thank you for supporting us. The more the merrier. We're trying to turn a corner.
You got,
so
you
really
got him a
appreciate-
vacation to Southern California.
yeah.
that's the club members get.
It wasn't a vacation. I'll tell you that. I was in LA traffic at like 5 p.m.
Oh, poor you.
And I had this car, this rental that had cruise control on it, but this new cruise control is pretty amazing because it gauges the distance between the car in front of you. So
join Cross Politic now.
Are you
so
done?
the kid can have cruise control that allows him to sit back.
You know,
hey, they paid for my trip. So the club members didn't pay for this trip, but anyways.
I want to say something about the club membership real quick.
Yeah.
Something that I see that's happening that I really want to thank God for. People who used to go to Drudge Report and go to Huffington Post.
Yeah.
I've heard this more than one time before. I was talking to Darren. He was telling me about this too.
Yeah.
But people who are watching and paying attention to the Fight Laugh Feast Network, they're starting to watch Marcus and other people who are streaming live the debate and watching that instead of watching the debate, or getting their news sources from the Fight Laugh Feast Network who are dealing with. And I'm just want to say, like, that's really good, especially in the time of ABC News. You need somebody who's going to, and what club members are going to allow us to do is be able to have the resources to do the research and dig deeper.
Well, and I love the fact that a lot of our listeners actually send us news stories and be like, hey,
That's
did you see this? And did you see this? And, it doesn't always make it into a show, but you are helping, and it's a huge encouragement. And what we really want to do is we want Gabe and David on full time.
Yeah.
That's what we're aiming for, so that we can be bringing you all kinds of shows and programs, and we can be covering a lot more of the news than we're able to. So if you want more of that, please join.
Yeah.
It's a huge help.
Cross Politic Daily.
If you want more of ABC, don't join the network.
Yeah, right.
All right.
That's our plug. That's our plug.
So here we go. We got a interview with Josh Harris. So Josh Harris is coming back out.
Uh-oh.
All right,
out
I'm
of
good.
the closet.
It was a great show,
or
guys.
whatever.
I'm
All
gonna
right,
go
we'll
ahead
see you
and-
later.
It sounds like you think the church has made a massive mistake by becoming so identified with President Trump.
I think it's incredibly damaging to the gospel and to the church.
He can't even finish.
And you give advice. You still give advice. How do
Still
they
give advice?
How do they unwind that? What should they do?
I don't think it's going to end well. And I think, you look back at the Old Testament and the relationship between the prophets and really bad leaders and kings, and oftentimes it's not something you unwind, because it's actually in the scriptures presented as God's judgment on the false religion of the day.
You think Christians today who are embracing President Trump are due for a judgment?
I think it is the judgment. I think it is part of the judgment.
What do you mean by that?
To have a leader like Trump, I think, is in itself part of the indictment that this is the leader that you want and maybe deserve, that represents a lot of who you are.
I wonder if that's the take of the Covenant Community Church that he was the pastor of, for 15 years or whatever prior to apostatizing. Was he what the church wanted? Do you know what I mean? So a guy who
was Josh Harris the judgment of his church
on that church.
Oh.
He's a reflection. So when you have Joshua Harris coming out and wanting to be biblical and prophetic, given the context of who he is, I think
apostatizing.
He might have some valid things to say, but he's clearly, I think, now operating from a place of bitterness and obviously anti-Christian in a way.
But what is he even like? Do you have a laugh track? Do you just have a
Here,
laugh?
I'll give you
That's all that deserves.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you're concerned about damaging the church?
Yeah. A shepherd apostatized, and you're concerned about them supporting Trump?
Wait, what? And now you're going to appeal to the Old Testament and the judgment of God?
Yeah.
And you,
like it has meaning. I mean, I wonder if we asked him.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, ridiculous. I mean, it's
What's wrong with you people?
Just to add one more in there, because
I'm all for that perspective. You know what I mean? I'm not out here just saying, it's
Which
clear
perspective?
that the idea that a leader or a president could, and the leaders could be judged. And so, in of itself, in of itself, it's not a horrible platitude to roll out. It's always the specifics.
No, we do get the leaders that we deserve. And they frequently are the judgment of God upon us. That much is true. It's insane. It's crazy that Josh is the one
who might be sitting in Romans 1. You know what I mean?
But by his own appeal, like, Josh, you are the judgment of God on the church.
That's right.
You are bad for the church.
Right.
You are bad for the gospel. And so to talk in some way like you are in some way able to sit in some place of judgment.
He wants to speak covenantally
on this. Like, you gave up the right to do that.
Well, and just to add to that, if Trump is our judgment, we got him because of you, Josh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's right.
If Trump is our judgment, and it's
because of pastors like you, we have Trump. If you're going to make that connection.
Exactly. Yeah. You doing what you did, you doing ministry like this, and according to you, what'd you say about his book?
And he had to do his little mea culpa tour with his book that supposedly he ruined so many lives. So here's a guy who was his book, The Judgment of God, on a culture where he...
Right. That's what he was arguing 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, he goes on this mea culpa tour where he's apologizing, and all these people are saying how he's destroyed their life. And now he's worried about Donald Trump destroying the gospel. He's destroyed lives, according to his own movie, according to his own testimony.
Documentary,
And I'm not even sure his book was that bad.
Yeah, I've never read it.
As bad as he said it was.
I should have, given my status.
Yes.
I didn't read the book, y'all.
You would already kiss dating goodbye,
I live it out, y'all. I live it out.
You can blame it on Josh that you're still single like all the others.
We got any single guys out there?
Looking for a holy man.
But here's the other thing to remember. I read, what's it called?
One book.
Escape from Reason by Francis Schaeffer is a fantastic short little booklet on what he calls sort of this horizon of despair. As you reject the standard of God's word and truth, an ultimate standard of truth, you are slowly basically heading toward, the only place to head is despair.
Yeah.
Because there's no rooting, there's no foundation for life, reality, the truth, anything. And so it's interesting though that as he's talking this way, like it's like he's fallen down the despair hill too, and saying there's nothing to do. We're under the judgment of God, which is true, and we are under the judgment of God for many reasons that he doesn't see.
Right.
And Josh, you're under the judgment of God for leaving the church and for apostatizing. Mm-hmm. But it's all despair, and I think actually that's what a lot of liberalism is basically built on. It's built on a fundamental level of despair, evolutionary despair. Just there's no future, there's no ultimate reality, there's no meaning, and so therefore the best you do with that despair is you try to make it up as you go along. Yeah. And you're trying to create a morality, you try to create goodness out of nothing, but you don't, I think that's actually Josh's problem. Yeah. I think he gave in to despair. I think he gave in to despair in his own heart. I think there were sins that he didn't want to fight anymore. He thought it was Jesus couldn't kill them. Jesus couldn't deliver him. Yeah. And I think he's giving into despair.
Perseverance.
Culturally giving into despair. And this is why, fundamentally what the gospel gives is a solid basis for hope. And that's why we fight.
Right. Also too, thinking about this presuppositionally, he doesn't get to use those categories.
Yeah. By what standard?
Well, that's what I was saying. He appealed to the Old Testament, bro.
Yeah, judgment. What are you talking about? You don't believe in that stuff no more.
And I think you also just watching. You do see a man who's afflicted. Like he knows he's apostate because even in the rest, I read this interview, watched a brief clip, and he does kind of basically mention that, like, by all the categories he had, he can't be a Christian anymore. But it's almost like he still knows it's true. He just
haunted by it now.
Yeah, and so now he's left it. So I think he's operating from that position. That's pretty terrifying.
Which makes him a very dangerous person.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because that's the thing. Is like he's still like talking like he is somehow friendly to the church, and it's like, no, you're an enemy. I mean, anyways.
Yeah. Well, and as confused as Josh Harris is, that really is also the state of our Christian higher education.
Oh yeah.
Our Christian higher education is incredibly confused. And here's a little clip at Dordt College.
Be on the screen for you. The first one is sex, and most of these definitions come from Preston Sprinkle's book, Grace and Truth. And so sex simply refers to one's biological sex, which is typically self-evident. More precisely, a person's sex is determined by their sexual anatomy, reproductive organs, their hormones, and chromosomes. So, in other words, sex is biological.
It's kindergarten.
It's Dordt College.
The next term is gender. And this term is often confused and used in a variety of ways. And some of the ways that it is used is your own internal sense of self, right? Your authentic self, who you are on the inside. How you express yourself, so the clothing you wear, the mannerisms you have, the interests you have as well. Also, the cultural expectations for what it means to be a man or a woman. And gender could refer to one's biological sex. And so if we were to summarize these two terms, as I said, sex is biological, and gender oftentimes is understood as cultural or psychological.
Just let him stop there. All right. Just be done.
Is he embracing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Dordt College is embracing that.
What is
He's
Dordt,
working from
what is Dordt College?
So Dordt College is associated with the Christian Reformed Church.
Dutch Reform.
The Christian Reformed Church. I'm reading it. I will read it. It was founded in 1955. It's named after the historic Synod of Dordt.
Dutch.
The canons of Dordt are one of the
Dutch.
three major confessional statements of Reformed churches. Yeah.
So what Bible verse did he use?
It's in Sioux Center, Iowa. Yeah.
I'm getting more and more worried about Iowa.
And if you guys remember Calvin College, we actually ran this clip on our show, I don't know, 5 months ago, but Calvin College the lady was introducing a guest speaker and also mentioned that, hey, there's gender-neutral bathrooms in the back here. So male and female bathrooms on the side over here, and then you can walk around to the back.
Dude.
To the bathroom of your choice in the back.
Calvin
College.
This stuff is just
What's this guy's name?
insane.
I don't know. He was just speaking at their chapel, or
He was speaking at their chapel?
I think
This was a chapel service. I did see that part of it.
Yeah, that'll get everybody ready for the gospel.
Yeah.
Get you fired up. That was a post-mill. That was like a post-mill sermon right there.
Oh, my gracious.
But this is like, so public education, public higher education particularly, has been going down for a long time in flames. And I'm just,
It's in the Christian higher education.
I can't believe how bad it is in Christian higher education.
So basically, we've been telling you guys, be careful about sending your kids to the universities, the public universities. You can't just it's a boot camp for secularism.
Yep.
But turns out Christian colleges,
they're right there.
You're on them all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not on the Christian campus, but on the
How come
secular
you don't go
universities.
preach on the Christian campus?
they need the gospel.
should do that.
I actually was debating about hitting up Wheaton, but the way most Christian schools are set up, I can't get in the middle of campus. Like, I'll get tased. You know what I mean? I can't
Christian
get on
campus.
on campus.
Christian-
And
to preach the gospel.
But every
Preaching the
now and then,
gospel.
every now and then I can have like a public sidewalk. Like, there's another school it's funny. There's another school, Central in Pella, Iowa. And they're kind of in the RCA, similar to the CRC and going liberal. And I preach there. I mean, they called every cop in Pella, like all the message boards of Pella were like, crazy preacher, you know what I mean? And and the kids are coming out of the woodwork. And it was kind of funny because they all stood like 30, 40, 50 feet away. Like, they weren't sure what to make of me, but it was this crazy liberalism. Then you gradually have like the guys come close, and you could have a discussion. And inevitably, it was all this Christian background with the creeping liberalism. And once those underlying assumptions, even like this, like, I really think the root that we have to go after, and we're hitting on the show all the time, but like that egalitarian root, it just colors everything, because then everything kind of becomes a flat one, and it just becomes madness. So I interact with this stuff every day.
This is, but what he's saying, that distinction that he's making between sex and gender, like that is denying the God of heaven. Like we cannot state it strongly enough. Okay, to make gender something that you come up with, that culture invents, and all these sort of things, is denying the authority of the Creator. The authority of the Creator, the one who gives you the biological body that He gave you, the hormones, the chromosomes, all that, which that is your gender assignment.
Yep, right.
You don't distinguish those things. It was the feminists who were trying to make that distinction back in the 1950s.
Now our theologians are making it.
And now you got chapel services in Reformed colleges making that distinction. It's defiance. And the thing that people need to get is I got into some fun on the Twitters recently. And one of the things that came at me when I was I quoted Rosario Butterfield and you know, anyways, and it was fun. I had a great time. But I get right into a bunch of Christians that are saying, but this is not primary doctrine.
Oh.
This is not primary doctrine.
Oh.
Sexuality, gender, all this stuff is secondary doctrine. We agree on orthodoxy is primary doctrine, like the Nicene Creed.
Saved by grace.
And he made them.
But yeah, as I say, and central to that is God's creator.
Exactly.
And so our creation theology has to reflect the male-female sort of thing. And our whole current attempt, at least 150 years or more in the West, we've been seeking to overturn the whole creational aspect. And now you see the fruit of it downstream. So Darwin gets rid of God.
Yep.
You're able to have it all natural. And now here we are 150 years downstream. And even the church are like, we don't even have male and female anymore.
When you say, I believe in one God, creator of heaven, the heavens and the earth, of all that's seen and unseen, visible and invisible. What you're talking about is primary creation of people, male and female, with assignments to be masculine and feminine. And that's, and the fact that there are cultural expressions of that does not in any degree destroy the fact that God has created masculinity and femininity, and the expression of that sexuality is from him.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think I at least said it to you guys. Did you see the Mary McAleese, who was like the former president in Ireland? I believe I'm pronouncing her name right. But she had a comment basically against infant baptism because of it. It imposes obligations and duties onto somebody that they did not agree to.
Oh,
and
really?
So it's really fascinating. And so she's like
abortion?
infant baptism. And so she's teasing out the implications. But what's interesting is
this gal?
Mary McAleese, I believe is her name, and she was the former president of Ireland. And she
was
rooted in Catholicism in some way. But what's really fascinating is she is self-conscious, like, no, we have to overturn the Roman Catholicism in our culture. And part of that is you can't have any imposition on you, including baptism, that is not your own self-expression of who you are.
So in other words, God bless the Baptists. But to be consistent, what you are saying is that that your identity is based in your decision and your profession to walk with Christ, which is at least in tension with the fact that God is the sovereign one who creates us, who makes us, who claims us, and who sends us out as newborn men and women in Christ.
Oh, look at the time.
And are we out?
And when we baptize him, we're submitting to the sovereign God and saying, you have claimed my son, my daughter. He belongs to you. She belongs to you.
Yeah.
And
it destroys covenant all the way up to the political.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Infant baptism is absolutely political.
Yeah. Oh. And on that note, we have Phil Johnson, a Baptist, coming up next on Cross Politics.
Drinking all his water.
I'm going to put my hat on.
More better segment.
You ready, Phil? Classical Conversations supports homeschooling parents by cultivating the love of learning through a Christian worldview in fellowship with other families. We provide a classical, Christ-centered curriculum, local, like-minded communities across the United States and in several countries, and we train parents who are striving to be great classical educators in the home. For more information and to get connected, please visit our website at classicalconversations.com. Classical, Christian, get connected, get community.
Go home!
It doesn't have.
I'm not supposed to laugh at that.
It doesn't have the same effect at all.
I shouldn't laugh at that. No, it doesn't actually.
Hey, welcome back to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. This segment is brought to you by Classical Conversations. If you have been listening to us at all, you know that we've been telling you, get your kids home.
Get them out of public school.
Get your kids out of public school.
Right.
You need to teach them. You need to train them. And Classical Conversations is an online-based home education program. Comes alongside parents, allows them to teach their kids, give them a full-orbed classical education. It meets once a week with people in your community. Right. There's chapters all over the country. I think maybe all over the world.
In LA, there's probably like 10 of them.
There's probably, or 50 maybe. Classical Conversations. Check them out. We're very grateful for their sponsorship. With us on the line right now is Phil Johnson. Phil is the executive director of Grace to You. He has been closely associated with John MacArthur since 1981, edits most of MacArthur's major books. Phil also founded several popular websites, including the Spurgeon Archive, the Hall of Church History, and the Pyromaniacs blog. He is an ordained elder and pastor at Grace Community Church. He and his wife, Darlene, have 3 adult children and 7 grandchildren, and I think this is his second time on our show.
It is.
Is that right?
It is.
Thanks
He came back.
Thanks
that is right.
Thanks for being on Cross Politic again, Phil.
Thanks for having me.
And I also just wanted to give you a special thanks for breaking my server.
What did I do?
Well, it's your fault, man. I about a week ago, I wrote a blog post. And,
right. I saw that. And your server went down because I linked to it.
Yes. I think you linked to it like 4 or 5 times, in fact.
Yeah.
I had no idea what had happened. Somebody says, "Hey, your blog's acting funny," and it was like sort of limping along for a couple hours. And that's when I noticed, oh, look, and you had actually said something to me on Twitter and thanking me for it. And I was like, oh, grand. Okay, Phil linked to it. And then a couple hours later, it's gone. Like it's dead. And it took me about, 24 hours or so to get the thing transferred to a brand new server. And
I know I was getting emails from people saying you linked to this and there's nothing there.
Yeah. Well, you and me both.
Yeah.
I know that bothered me a little bit.
What's that?
And I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in real trouble.
Real trouble.
Phil did share that, and I was waiting for a onslaught of other people writing articles that were cover fire for that moment, and I didn't see them.
Yeah.
And so maybe I was concerned because like 15 years ago, there was no way that Dr. MacArthur was going to say something like that, and I have a bunch of friends start firing the same way,
like defending
him.
Yeah.
And I was just surprised. And Phil, maybe I'm wrong, but am I seeing that right?
No, that's probably true. It's not the first time though. I think you recall that when John wrote a series of blog articles criticizing Driscoll's handling of Song of Solomon, kind of the same thing happened. It's like the whole world turned on him, and you had all these young reform guys saying, just don't listen to him. He's an old man yelling at the young kids to get off his lawn. He's past his age and all that sort of stuff. And that happens occasionally. But
it's par for the course, huh?
Yeah, well, it's not the ordinary response we get, but it is when you know you've really stepped on someone's toes. When that happens.
Yeah, so we know this is the I think it was called John MacArthur, Beth Moore, and
football or something.
And girls getting tackled in football, or boys clobbering girls in football, or something like that.
Yeah, that was a great article. Article, well written too. Thanks.
Well, really appreciate that. All right, well. We want to go back to the beginning of this and talk through some of this with you, and we got an audio clip just to bring everybody up to speed.
We're going to start on this. This is just kind of touching your toes, easy setup for you. Let's begin with an easy one. The word is Beth Moore. Go home.
That's just so good. I like Todd.
I see we're warmed up. I dilly-dally.
So, this is the clip that was apparently heard around the world for 48 hours, 72 hours. And everybody goes berserk. And the thing that, there's some people who are these sort of dyed-in-the-wool Beth Moore fans, feminists, egalitarians, whatever.
Yeah.
But really the striking thing was how many, and this gets to your question, Chalk, is how many people who are, supposedly hardcore complementarians, who would ordinarily you'd think would be on John MacArthur's team on this. But the flack, a lot of the complaint, of course, was over the tone of it all.
Yeah.
Right. It's sort of the methodology of all the context. And so a lot of the flack you received was over the format, the perceived flippancy and disrespect of Beth Moore, getting the audience to laugh and clap. So my question, Phil, is why is it so important for the church to actually speak this way on these crucial issues?
Well, a few things about that. It's been a 15-year-long problem, at least, that I've been aware of.
Right.
that mainstream evangelicals think the worst sin you can commit is to use a tone that's offensive. The tone you can teach or say or do any kind of heresy you want or bad behavior or whatever and get by with that. But if you say anything in the wrong tone or a tone that's too shocking or surprising or whatever, then you're going to get a lot of pushback because tone is everything in this postmodern era.
Yep.
That's one thing. The other thing is I kind of understand some of the pushback when all people heard was that little clip. There's a lot of derisive laughter and all, which sounds inappropriate given that's all the context you have. Now, you guys have more context because you've been focused on what Scripture teaches about the role of women and how God has ordered the family and all of that. So you understand that. So the phrase "go home" has a specific sort of reference to Timothy. Or rather, Titus 2, verse 5,
right,
which says women should be, keepers at home.
Right.
That is what he was referring to. He wasn't just trying to be snide.
Right.
And there was more context than that in the conference itself. Shortly before that, Justin Peters had done a message where he, his style is to show video clips and sort of analyze them. And he'd had a series of clips with Beth Moore exegeting her own dreams and saying some things that were outrageous and bizarre and things that should not be said and taught in the name of Christianity. And so, John MacArthur's comment had reference to that as well. There was quite a bit of context, which the people in the conference understood, which is why you have laughter rather than outrage. That's a cross-section of evangelicals who were there, but they had sat through these messages where Beth Moore's teaching had been critiqued. Some things had been said that sort of put John MacArthur's comment into context. And so it sounds more snide when all you hear is a little 90-second soundbite than it was, when it happened. And, I've known John MacArthur for 40 years. I've never seen him be snide.
Right.
He wasn't trying to be flippant there.
Right.
But he was asked to give a, one-word response. He used 2 words, but
right.
That wouldn't be his normal style of responding. And in fact, just this past Sunday, he preached an entire message on 1 Timothy 2 that dealt with the question of the role of women.
Right.
That's the context. And anybody who really wants to understand John MacArthur's comment, why he said it, why that came out like it did, really needs to, first of all, look at those clips that Justin Peters had just shown, and then listen to John MacArthur's message that he gave just this past Sunday on 1 Timothy 2.
I appreciate all that, and I think it's really significant and important, and I think in terms of, general tone and so on, ministers of the gospel need to be careful and thoughtful, and obviously we're to honor women. At the same time, you say this is something going on for a few decades, and I think talk
about context
and longer in terms like a century and a half of increasing feminization of the church.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going back to Gresham Machen. J. Gresham Machen was calling out the Presbyterians in the 1920s.
Wow.
Well, Spurgeon was in the 19th century.
There you go.
Spurgeon was chagrined that British pastors were beginning to affect sort of an effeminate tone.
Yes.
He mocked it and talked about preachers who lisp.
Exactly. Exactly. But that's the thing
fantastic.
but that's the thing is they want to it's sort of the old Pharisee problem. And the Pharisees have this long tradition of disobeying God's word. And at some point, Jesus just makes fun of them. He mocks them.
Right.
He says, you go around in your long robes and your long prayers, and, you think God can hear you because you blow, your trumpet before you do your good works. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's a place for godly laughter and mockery of something that you know better. You do know better. And don't pretend you don't know better.
Well, and two, I got to give it up to Todd. One of the things that Todd's really good at is getting people to have a conversation like they're the only few people in the room.
Yeah.
And he's able to talk to somebody and have a way to talk to them that is just like, it's just us. And he does it in a context that's not typical for formal. It's not formal. It's very informal. And
that's the fun.
That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we don't get a chance to see Dr. MacArthur in those. I mean, like you said, Phil, it's hardly ever. That's not his typical way of having conversation with people publicly.
Right.
And Todd is able to sit.
Yeah, it's not his style. Yeah,
no,
that's right.
But you know what though? That's what makes it amazing and fun. Is that we get a chance to experience and see somebody who we love and care about having this conversation in a different context.
It's also what makes it really effective.
That was where I'm going
because the guy on the street. I mean, the guy on the street is not likely to always be brought along by the longer, more nuanced academic explanations.
Yeah, and it's not like we don't have that. He actually, after that clip, he goes on to
explains what he means.
Much longer explanation of it.
Yeah.
So I think part of it too. I just want to give Todd a shout out. We need more of that kind of table talk.
The street talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bring it home
from guys who are biblical, who are accurate, and
now we didn't play the clip of your response, Phil.
No,
we could have, but it seemed to me like you come in right after this, and the word you use is narcissist. And you explain, Beth Moore tries to find herself in the text. That's actually what she says she does. And I'm over here thinking,
how come you didn't get Twitter jail?
How come everybody's upset at MacArthur? And it seemed like your response was a lot harsher. Why didn't you get in as much trouble as Pastor MacArthur?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. John MacArthur said the same thing to me. He said, what you said was. And I suppose that's true. It's I was sitting up there sort of cringing, knowing, okay, this is going to hit Twitter and it's going to be ugly.
Yep.
And I wasn't deliberately trying to fan the flames or get people more agitated, more laughing. And in fact, I think they stopped laughing pretty quickly.
I think that's exactly right. Everybody went quiet, actually.
Like, this is serious.
Yeah, people understood, well, this is not a joke. This is serious.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I think the Q&A was pretty good. But the soundbite that got posted was, that first question and the short answer. And so it gives a whole different tone to what was actually a pretty serious Q&A. The rest of that Q&A and the Q&A the next day, I think we're all the sort of thing that, are edifying and instructive, that no one would have any reason to complain about the tone. But I think the laugh track in the back, that's bad. I cringed at that. I understand why people laughed because, number one, it's Todd Friel and he's kind of a comedian and he's laughing.
Right.
Plus, it is shocking to hear John MacArthur respond in such a terse way like that. He's usually more wordy, but he'd been limited to a one-word response. So it was shocking and for a moment funny, but the laughter died away immediately when people realized, no, this is serious, and they're making an important point.
Yeah.
And it is an important point, and I hate for it to get lost in questions about tone,
Right.
Yeah,
but again,
absolutely. So Phil, it seems like we're suffering. I mean, the reason we got women, in cringing or creeping in on church leadership.
That's a word. We'll go for it.
Because it's cringe-worthy, and
that's more than cringing. It's more than cringing. It's
cringing. But Phil, it seems like this whole scenario illustrates like a real problem of pastors being courageous. And so when pastors are courageous, it makes it really easy for women to think, oh, I can do that. It doesn't take any courage to be in the pulpit.
Yeah.
Right, but we've seen that trend, and I know you guys have coming from you. There have been comments about this and all that. We've all seen this. Mm-hmm. The feminization of the church has been a problem. I've been speaking about it for at least 15 years, and so have you guys, pointing out that the church is becoming more and more of a feminine place in a way that really becomes repulsive to men. It chases them off because you're asking men to act like women, and giving the impression that this is how to be spiritual.
Right.
And the church is suffering because of it. And men are sort of stepping out of leadership or being timid when they ought to be bold. And even, as you said, I think you said earlier, even some of these guys who self-identify as complementarians, they act as bad as the egalitarians when an issue like this comes up.
Hey,
funny you should bring that up, Phil.
We got some other clips for you on that. Way to go, Phil. Way to tee it up. Hang on here. This is Jen Wilkin.
Good, got it.
One of the most important things that I do when I travel around the country and teach the Bible is actually not that I teach the Bible. It's that I show up looking like a woman and teach the Bible. because a lot of women only see men do that. So do you know how they perceive themselves as students of the Bible? They don't. They see that as a passive learning environment where I take in what someone else has told me the text says. We need women in visible leadership places.
Oh, so Phil, what do you think?
All right, so let me be kind to her in a way that John MacArthur's critics have not been kind to him, and say that in a certain context, I could agree with everything she said there. I do think there's a role for women to teach in the church. Scripture says that older women are to teach the younger women.
Yeah.
Now, that's also Titus 2.
Right.
So I do think it's important for women to take doctrine seriously, to teach and learn one another in a biblical context. So everything she said there is true, as long as you don't throw the entire church in the mix. And if she's talking about that, what she wants to do is, teach the men as well, then I think she's overstepped the bounds of what Scripture permits for teachers and leadership in the church.
So, Phil, if I was to tell you one of the most important things that I do when I go out and teach is not that I teach the Bible, it's that I teach the Bible as a black man. Mm-hmm. How does that ring in your ears? Does it ring the same way? Is that fair enough, or is it like something else creeping in on that?
Think, again, I want to be charitable to her as to context. If she's recognizing what I think really is a problem, that in a lot of women's groups in the church, you have a lot of storytelling and superficial, how to make crafts and all that sort of thing. That isn't what Scripture is telling women to do in Titus 2. It's telling them to teach one another in a serious way.
Yeah. It is telling them how to make homes.
And let's be honest, that's coming from women.
Right.
Right? The pastor's not sitting up there and saying, hey, let's make sure we have craft time for women. That's the women's ministry deciding what they want to do for women. That's not coming from the man. If it was the man, it'd say, hey, let's sit down here and have a Bible study. We're not going to sit down and show women how to do crafts.
Yeah.
So it's funny that that's coming from what she says they don't want.
It seems to me though that like this actually ties in a little bit with one of those right after the clip that we played, the go home clip. John MacArthur gets back on and points out the fact that what was it, like some new like Bible translation committee is committed to having like a black person and a woman on the next translation committee, and says, how about we have people that know Hebrew and Greek?
Right. Yeah.
But it seems to me that some of what Jen is saying here, and I really do want to give her the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, the idea that a woman only hearing teaching from men, that there's some like automatic deficiency in that being taught by men is that they're only passive if men are teaching. I mean, that's how God set up the churches, that men are the ordinary teachers of the word. Now, yes, there is a Titus 2 place, but it seems to me that Chalk's right. I mean, if I say, well, unless somebody looks just like me, like, I'm sorry, Chalk, but only if it's only when white preachers preach to me,
that you can hear them,
that I can actually hear them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, no, I just got hung out to dry there. I'm a racist. I'm white.
Yeah, that's okay. We've always known that. You got another?
Yep, got another clip here.
Third, we need their visible leadership. How visible? As visible as your church's complementarianism allows. The more restrictively you read the scriptures, the more focus you should give to cultivating women leaders in the areas that your interpretation does allow. We need to make participation as easy as possible for women in leadership. We need to look for ways that they can flourish and be visible. Why? Why is it important for us to have them in visible leadership? I would argue that it is very important for the next generation of women who are coming along, but don't miss this. It's equally important for the next generation of men.
And to you, Phil.
Yeah, that last line kind of threw me. I'm not sure what she has in mind there, except that it sounds like she's trying to argue for, and let me say this too. As far as context is concerned, all I know how to listen to that is in the context of how our culture currently talks and how people use this sort of language and these sorts of arguments. Yep. But it sounds to me, given that context, and maybe that's not her context, but, take that soundbite and listen to it in the context of where our culture is going and where the evangelical subculture is going.
Yeah.
It sounds like she's arguing for a gradual evolution away from complementarianism. She's like, I'm okay with it now, but you got to push the limits, keep pushing the limits, because that's important, not for this next generation of men or women, but for the next generation of men. Right. Maybe we can turn them more milk toasty so that, they'll drop their complementarianism.
Like commercial.
I don't know that that's what she's saying, but I'll bet you that's how a lot of people hear it.
Well, and that's where it leads.
Yeah.
And the thing that bothered me about that one, though, was that how much should we have women in positions of power and leadership in the church? According to how much your complementarianism allows you to do it.
As much as your church will allow.
And so I'm thinking to myself, what about what the scriptures actually say about that particular issue?
It completely relativizes. I mean, as much as your interpretation will allow.
So if you're all the way on the fringe of women deacons.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Phil.
Exactly. That's why I think she is arguing, it sounds like she's arguing for the limits to be gradually broadened until we get rid of complementarianism altogether.
Right. Now, here's a question.
And honestly, I think that's a way, that is the very direction a lot of self-identified complementarians are moving. The soft complementarians.
That's right.
Who are the same as yesterday's egalitarians.
It seems to me, Phil, that a lot of our, I think you're absolutely right, but a lot of these soft complementarians sort of technically check the boxes and say, Ephesians 5, Titus 2, 1 Timothy 2. Yeah. They technically check the boxes, but then they go on to say things like this, which I think completely sort of relativizes what they even mean, which is, I think, essentially puts us in a position of a sort of new liberalism, where, remember, liberalism is basically, we believe the same thing you do. We believe the same creed and so on. But it's basically a real soft Mormonism. Like, they don't believe the same thing by those words. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God, whatever. But what they mean by it is something entirely different. And so that's the danger that I'm seeing. Do you see that too?
Yeah, I do. And there are certain issues that sort of become, bellwethers for how conservative you are. Inerrancy, for example. Right. And you watch the inerrancy discussions, and this sort of comes around every 20 years or so. With each new generation, we fight the same battles over. And people know that, inerrancy is sort of, it's a badge of orthodoxy in the eyes of most people, as it should be. So people will profess to be inerrantists.
Right.
And yet define inerrancy in a way that gives them as much wiggle room as they can possibly get.
Yep.
And what people have done for ages with inerrancy, that's what they're doing with complementarianism now. They're saying, well, yes, I'm a complementarian, but here's all my wiggle room.
Right. As far as my interpretation will allow me.
Exactly. Right. Sorry. So Bishop Johnson, you got three options here. You can listen to another clip, run because you're a pastor and got things to do, or talk about how Epstein didn't kill himself.
Boy, I'm tempted just to spin the wheel and find out.
Play another clip.
Here we go.
Women are going to have eyes for the powerless. Not only that, but in the counseling room, a woman who is in an abusive situation is not going to open up to two elders because she already doesn't trust men. She's being abused by one. She won't even report what's happening to you in terms you can diagnose. She might say, well, he has an anger problem. And then we too often respond with, well, what are you doing? Like, what's your role in that? Where's your sin in this? Assuming that there's some equal balance of responsibility that's going on there. And when we say that to her, we have just told her exactly what her abuser has been telling her. You know why I get angry at you? You make me. You know who she's more likely to tell her story to? A woman. And not necessarily just your wife. A woman who has formal authority to speak into the process, who can be a true advocate for her.
And Phil Johnson.
Yeah, all this stuff makes me nervous. I mean, I will readily admit that historically, men in general haven't done a great job with what's one of their main duties, and that is guarding the purity and dignity of women. And so, yeah, I mean, there's no question you could point out a lot of abuses that have gone on, even in the church.
Yeah.
and there are some shameful ones that have made, lots of publicity.
Yep.
To use that though as an excuse to overturn the biblical order is dangerous. And you can see the effects of it if you look at some of these blogs that are devoted solely to victim advocacy. They call themselves survivors, survivor blogs.
Right.
Where they will take any accusation in absolute defiance of the clear biblical principles of what to do with accusations.
Yeah.
They will take any accusation and treat it as a fact. I've been accused of all kinds of things that are simply untrue just because I've said to in some of the contexts of these survivor blogs, look, there's no evidence of this thing that you're claiming. You need the evidence. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, you have to establish this thing before you can put it out on the internet and ruin a man's reputation.
That's right.
Right.
But
go ahead,
the evangelical women and the survivor blogs have followed the Me Too culture.
That's right.
Where pretty much any accusation is treated as fact.
That's right.
If I'm a chef,
and that's what scares me about that kind of rhetoric.
Yeah. That's
And notice though, it's using the victim thing.
Yeah.
But it's not just ending there. It's driving towards requiring. It's not enough just to have a woman. It has to be a woman who's been endowed with authority.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what she said.
That's it, yeah. And here's the deal.
Yep.
If I'm a shepherd and I got sheepdogs that aren't doing their jobs, what I don't do is go grab the sheep to say, you could be better. You're a victim. You know what it's like to go ahead and protect the sheep. No, I get rid of the bad sheepdogs.
Yeah.
Right. And I get some dogs that know how to bark and know how to bite and protect the sheep.
We need good elders.
We need the problem. And notice what they're doing though. They're saying that the elders, they can't do their job well. So therefore, let's now put up.
Since they won't talk to the elders.
That's not how God is. We have a system to get rid of bad elders.
Right.
You know what all these things have in common? They are examples of evangelicals imitating the flow of culture.
That's right.
And pretty much every major problem that I've ever attacked in print or called out in the church goes back to that same thing. Evangelicals have this pathological quest for earning the respect of the secular academy or the entertainment world, or they have to be cool and trying to please the world. And we forget that, look, friendship with the world is enmity with God.
Yeah. Francis Schaeffer said that the church tends to master on being behind culture. And one of the things that quote made me think of is like, well, at some point you get so far behind culture, you become irrelevant. Yeah. And that's what's happening in the church. And so what that creates is a vacuum for women like Jen Wilkin to come up and start stepping up and say, hey, we need to be doing it this new way.
My wife heard this clip too, and she almost broke my monitor because she threw something at the screen. She was like, my wife, she don't play this mess. She's like, I want to know who these ladies' friends are.
Yeah.
She's like, because we act like we don't talk.
Yeah.
We act like we don't have somebody that we share things with.
Right.
We don't have ability to communicate with each other that would make it to the top. Like, there's no way that my cousin, and we've had these issues in our house where something has gone wrong, some abuse has happened, and the cousins get to talking, the girl cousins.
Yeah.
The guys find out about it, problem fixed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But the girls just talking.
They just talking. I'm telling my husband. Yeah. And it gets, and so it's not like we don't have the ways to this.
Right.
This is not natural. This is not true. So, okay.
Yeah. One more clip here. One more clip. Yep.
What I want us to have is a recaptured vision for the church as the family of God. And too often within our churches, though we may speak the language of family, we operate as a single parent authoritarian home where the father makes the rules and the children all get in line. But if the church is the family of God, it's a place where there are fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters, and the kingdom advances when they work together.
Who's arguing that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my response is, I wish she could come and just spend a month at our church.
Yeah.
She would see how it's supposed to work, and we don't have a lot of angry women who feel like they should have more authority than they do, because our elders fulfill their function.
Right.
They all have wives, and the women in our church, you don't hear them complaining like this.
That's because they're oppressed and don't know it, Phil. That's a bunch of oppressed women. Also with this, though, if she's arguing for the family of God, the way the family of God is set up in structure is antithetical to what she's arguing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
That's exactly right.
So you can't, she's talking out of both sides. You can't say you want the family of God.
She's trying to take norms of the biological family and then use that to run roughshod over what God has said the spiritual family is supposed to function as.
Yeah. But pagans even get this right in a lot of ways that we don't.
Yeah.
Pagans get the families in some ways right. It's like, well, he's my king. I'm going to submit to my king. I'm his queen. And they are the subjects. There's a structure they get.
Right.
If you're going to talk about this as the family of God, then let's go to how the family of God operates. You have Jesus Christ as the head of the church. And
follow my word.
Yeah,
it's right here in the Bible.
Right here. Yeah. Submit and obey, husbands.
Adam's the head of the house.
Wife submits to her husband, right? Children submit to. There's a structure. That's what they want to. She's talking about this, like flattening it all out,
right?
As if the family of God is everybody gets to have a say so in all of this, and if they don't, then they don't know how to rule right, and if somebody's oppressed. That's not how the family of God works.
But Paul said something like, "It's shameful for a woman to speak in church."
Ooh, message,
right? I mean,
yeah. Now, David, you said your wife said. She wondered if these women have any friends. My question is, where are their husbands?
Yeah.
Because
that's right.
And in fact,
exactly
in
right.
pretty much every case where you find these women who are begging for more power and wanting to speak and all that, where are their husbands?
Yeah.
They seem to hide in the shadows and carry the baggage for their wives and all that. In a family that's operating the way it should. If you met my wife, you would say she is not a shrinking violet. She's not a timid woman.
I've heard about your wife.
She submits to me, and I listen to her.
Yep.
And that's the way it ought to be.
Right. Yep.
Last thing. After John MacArthur's comment, Beth Moore, go home. Just go home, actually. J.D. Greer gets up on Twitter and decides to say, Beth Moore, you're welcome in our house anytime. I just want to give you the opportunity to respond to that.
Well, I'll let my wife's comment stand. She said, I wonder if he asked his wife before he said that.
Message!
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Well, hey, I just want to thank you for joining us on this particular segment. Phil, we know we got you in a whole lot of trouble, and so we're very happy about that.
Yeah. My server's ready now. If you need to share any of this, it's okay. My server can take it.
All right. Hey, more cross-politic when we come back. Thanks, Phil. If you need a little red meat in your diet, Pastor Doug Wilson.
The word conserve is a transitive verb, and there's no virtue or vice in any transitive verb. So you love, but what do you love? God? Ice cream? Child porn? The church you were baptized in? Your favorite pair of jeans? So you conserve, but what is it that you want to conserve? The Kremlin Old Guard? Redwoods? Your stock options? The legacy of the first Christendom? Same with progress. You want to progress? Great. Where? To what end? By what standard?
To enjoy more red meat of this kind, check out the podcast on iTunes, or for more blogging of this particular nature, blog and Mayblog at DougWills.com. Kind of sticks in your teeth, don't it? I'm sorry I didn't make coffee, guys.
No,
it's okay.
You're not sorry enough.
Well, not enough. But do you have to put that thing right there on the table just to rub it in? Could you not at least?
Starbucks. That's over. That's over. You're fired, Toby. I just fired you.
We'll figure it out on the show.
We'll do it live.
We're doing live.
That hurts my heart to say that. Hey, guys, don't be like that. Don't be like
Welcome
that.
back to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. If you join the club, you too could do this with your
That's just mean.
And this segment is brought to you by Ely Construction. Ely Construction is looking for a new construction lead. This is a job here in Moscow, Idaho. It's a job for a man.
Oh.
And a manly man at that, who is not confused about his gender and
Ely is
sexuality.
sexist, huh?
Oh, he's straight up sexist.
Okay.
Yes, he is gloriously sexist.
They're going to have the EOC or whatever, the Equal Opportunity Employer, coming down on Eli Construction because an ad gone wild. Sorry. We got lawyers, y'all. We got lawyers.
I'm guessing he's white, too.
It is. If you have 10 plus years of full-time residential construction experience, love remodeling, and would consider moving to the town recently. Ely Construction is a lead carpenter position for you to consider. ElyConstruction.com/lead. Go there for details. EALY.
Don't we usually have a little thing on the back of the...
Oh, yeah? Okay.
It's the hammer. The
not
hammer
today.
thing.
Not today.
Yeah. If you're a master craftsman, you want to live in Moscow. If you're humble, hungry, people smart,
man.
if you want to innovate with excellence and remodeling, apply today. And if you're a man,
yeah, he ain't got no jobs for women.
go to EALYconstruction.com/LEAD.
Lead. Very good.
There, I did it, guys.
Well done.
We did it.
Are we gonna tee this up? Are we
Just
gonna
push
Are you
play.
serious? Okay,
We're doing this live.
Okay.
We're doing this live.
Okay.
We're doing this live.
So, just recently, Paula White, if you don't know who she is,
One of the best preachers in the country.
one of the best female pastor preachers in the country. Yeah. Trump, who is also now advisor to Trump and just got put into a position, but White House
staff.
She's a longtime spiritual advisor
Yes.
of Trump.
Yeah.
Joined the White House staff last week to lead the Faith and Opportunity Initiative, which is a division of the Office of Public Liaison.
She's a czar.
Yeah,
kind of. Okay, all right.
Her role will primarily be to solicit input from religious groups on White House initiatives and to maintain Trump's strong ties to the religious leaders who support him, saith CNN Politics.
Okay, so just to give you a little bit of a taste of who she is and how her preaching goes and how profound it is, hit it, Gabe.
Wherever I go, God rules.
Duh.
When I walk on White House grounds, God walks on White House grounds. I had every right and authority to declare the White House as holy ground because I was standing there, and where I stand is holy.
I love the edit of this video.
To say no to President Trump would be saying no to God. And I won't do that.
We are in a spiritual war right now. Let every demonic network that has aligned itself against
ABC.
the purpose, against the calling of President Trump,
CNN.
let it be broken, let it be torn down in the name of Jesus.
Want me to tell you what my thoughts are? The thoughts of the King of Kings, the thoughts of the Lord of Lords.
You get the idea.
I'm downloading heaven.
the idea.
Look at that. She's downloading heaven.
She's downloading heaven.
You gotta admit, she's got a little swag when she's walking where I walk, and she's got a little confidence.
I see
where
you got
she's
a little
going.
some of that too. You got when I do my thing, yeah. Glory, somebody give me a $2,000 offering. Okay, so that's Paula White.
Please write your text to Chocolate Knock Ministries.
Is she like health and wealth?
She is absolutely prosperity gospel preacher.
You showed me a clip yesterday when we were talking about this, about her, like, and make your checks out to Paula White.
Right.
Yeah.
And she that was at her church, I think a church she had planted.
Okay.
Instead of making it out to the church, she said, today you're going to make him out to Paula White. I was like, she's like, and I decide to do with the church, that's a whole nother thing, you know what I'm saying? But you go ahead and write them names out to Paula White. Yeah.
And she said something like, I just know that, there's a special blessing.
Yeah.
Like,
well, of course, that just comes with
And
the
she said
money.
whether it's $10 or $10,000
$1,000,
or $100,000.
Right.
And so Paula White has been a well-known name, especially in the charismatic movement, black churches especially.
Why would Donald Trump be interested in this woman?
You know what? I can't.
I think the same reason Trump's interested in anybody who'll support him. I think that's what you'll support me. I don't think. I mean, she probably wears the same gaudy gold toilet that he got or whatever, and so I think
that's part of it.
So I think she's up his alley. He's pretty gaudy in his aesthetic, and so is she. And
she can fill up stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
Paula White
can she?
Yes, she can fill up stadiums. Paula White has been known as, and T.D. Jakes has called her this, my spiritual daughter, and she considers him her spiritual father. And so he's signed off on her a long time ago, and she's been in, and she preaches like, like she's in the circle. She can throw down with this organ if she got to, she know how to work that crowd. So she's in, she's been in for a long time.
Are you saying specifically like in black churches?
Yes, absolutely.
In the black church,
Paula White's always had she's got the pass. She's had the pass.
She's got a black card?
Yes. Yes. She gets
you
invited.
Don't even have
There's
that.
not a whole lot of people that get invited to Mega Fest to speak.
Yeah.
Paula White gets that invite.
Okay, what's Mega Fest?
Is Mega Fest? Is that like?
So Mega Fest, oh my goodness, if we don't have enough time, Mega Fest, T.D. Jakes would put on, I don't know if he's still doing them, I have to go check and see, but he would put on an event, take over a whole city like Atlanta.
Okay.
And invite basically everything Christian, from music to preachers to family event, movies, the whole night would come and just descend on one city and have everybody there from the nation and do I think for a week, a conference.
Okay.
And it would just take over a full city. And so Atlanta was the last place I remember being.
We're talking like tens of thousands of people.
Oh,
It's like a charismatic Lollapalooza then.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And they would take over, but in everything, business, it wasn't just preaching. It was across the board, entertainment, business. They would take over the whole city and show what it was like when Christians come into town. if you want our business, Atlanta, open up. And they would bend over backwards to have MegaFest in their cities.
Really?
Yes. And so TD Jakes would put on MegaFest, and it was.
I mean, so how you said charismatic? Like, how charismatic? I mean, are these Christians?
Yeah, absolutely. But TD Jakes is not. Well, he's not Orthodox.
Not Orthodox.
No, he's Trinitarian. There was an Elephant Room 2 that was done. And I remember Vodi Bakum was supposed to be at that one.
Okay.
And he wasn't ready to sign off on TD Jakes and that whole thing. And so somehow he didn't make it into it.
He was getting his manicure?
Yeah. Well, no. They probably no.
Oh, maybe they.
Was that the one where the McDonald guy?
McDonald.
The guy who like wanted to knock
Mason.
off like the.
Yeah.
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
You mean they didn't invite him? You think they
No,
just invited him?
Jakes was invited, but he wasn't ready just to sign off. He was going to put some screws on.
Vodi didn't show up because he wasn't ready. He was going to say some stuff that they didn't want to say. In the
so
elephant
Vodi
room.
wasn't allowed
You
to
mean
be
people
on that
do
panel.
that?
So that was. There's a whole bunch
You're
of
in the
stuff that
elephant room
happened.
and you can't say what the big elephant is in the
This
room.
is a gentle elephant room.
This was about inclusion.
Gentle.
This was about inclusion. And actually,
Sounds like a Beth Moore elephant
at
room.
this time, Eric Mason was one of the guys that I really respected because there was few Reformed black churches.
Right.
And he was one of the guys I was looking at as like, that's a biblically reformed church.
Right.
And thinking biblically, why in the world is he signing off on TD Jakes? I was at Wretched at this time.
Okay.
And I got in a conversation with him on Twitter. He blocked me.
Eric Mason?
Eric Mason blocked me and refused to engage anymore in the conversation because I said, dude, you know, he's even if you embrace his theology on the Trinity or you say he got it wrong, he didn't understand it, he's got a ton of other things that put him outside of orthodoxy.
Really?
And so his word of faith stuff, and he wants to claim he's not word of faith, but his preaching stuff is still word of faith. That's what's really interesting about word of faith circles, charismatic preaching in some of the black church. It's just inherent in the system, even though they might not say that
So
they
they see
hold
somebody
to
else
word
is
of
more
faith.
extreme on it, and they'll be like, well, I'm not that.
Yeah, exactly.
But-
and they want to talk against that, but yet they.
Okay, so why does this all matter
So what
to
matters?
Paula White?
What matters is because 2 years ago. So after seeing Paula White, this recently just happened with her and President Trump. But she's been advising him for a long time.
Yeah.
Now it's official.
Yeah.
But I remember, and everybody was all upset that Paula White's going to be there. This is how crazy she is, and she is crazy.
Crazy.
There's no doubt about that. She's off. But I remember that she was at least gutsy enough 2 years ago to sit down in front of her constituents with TD Jakes on a panel,
Right.
to have a fight about why she was supporting Trump.
So that's interesting. So yeah, I'm here. So I'm
She has
seeing this.
everything to lose.
So she's gung-ho Trump,
Right.
but most of her constituency is not.
Very much opposed.
Very much opposed. Like, and I mean, think of everything we hear on the news all day long.
Right,
I mean, was it, Tabiti and all these other people telling us that, like, voting for Trump is like voting against the black community.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people that she talks to, a lot of people she reaches. Now, she does have a white audience too, but she's a dear one inside of the black community for sure.
I've yet to meet one white person that listens to her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I was just quiet for a little bit. I was throwing random
gotta say
comments.
something.
Just throwing out random comments now.
Just to help
I was like,
you.
he's still here. I felt neglected, y'all.
Just to help you in the clip, you're gonna see one white guy on stage, and at least a few in the audience. Okay, so that'll help.
Is he gay?
That's yet to be determined. He is a Catholic priest, so we don't know.
All right.
There are things coming up this week that will be spent a 3-hour meeting with clergy, with voices on issues. Well, they're
comfortable with the direction this administration is taking as a Christian?
See the guy from the punch?
I mean, there might
Guys,
be elements, but I mean,
First
overall.
off, Bishop Jakes is my spiritual father, and I always honor and respect him. I'm not comfortable with a lot of things, Bishop. I'm not comfortable with a lot of things. But I go back to saying that if that were a Democrat administration, if that were a Republican administration, I probably, as a person, am going to find fault with both, because if it's not in alignment with what I see as the infallible Word of God, I'm not going to be in agreement with it.
I really want to discuss what she just said. It is the narrative that is heralded over the pulpits all over America, that the welfare of the poor should be provided by the church. Okay? That is the narrative. Paula didn't go that far with it, but that is the narrative that we are told and taught consistently.
That's right.
If you just do the math,
Doesn't work out.
if you just do the math, if you take the gross national income of all the churches in America, if we didn't pay the mortgage, if we didn't pay the staff, if we didn't pay the light bill, and took all of our money and gave it all away to the poor and became homeless to feed them, we still don't have the money when we are taking 10% of a few people's income and they're taking 35% of everybody's income. I'd be that gone if I should have to feed everybody by myself.
Wow. Wow.
So
did we play that before?
We haven't played that. We never got around to playing this clip 2 years ago.
I remember that when we talked about this a couple years ago.
Okay, so
there's so much there.
I want to start at this point. So right now I'm working on the film By What Standard with Founders Ministry.
Is that a presuppositional film?
Basically. But one of the things that have been amazing to watch is men who have been leaders that we know to be leaders who have backed out when it comes time to fight. And when it comes time to fight amongst their constituents, right?
Yeah.
And here it is, Paula White has way more balls than half these guys.
Ooh. That's good. I didn't know. If I didn't know, I would just say, oh, look, they're having an interesting conversation. There's this black dude and there's this white girl. But
this is a hostile environment for her.
You got to understand. She says it on there. She says, you're my spiritual father.
Right.
And okay, we can set all the theological stuff to the side momentarily. Not orthodox.
Right,
all kinds of theological problems.
All that stuff.
She shouldn't be preaching.
Yes.
All that. And she's kind of crazy.
Yep.
But there, in that place, she is standing up to a father in the faith,
right?
In her faith,
yeah.
And they're having a real argument about real stuff, right there on stage for millions.
And she's willing to take the audience, giving her major because obviously that audience does not agree with her.
Yeah, she has a lot to lose.
They are paying for her jet.
Yeah,
you understand,
right?
And I don't know half the pastors in the Southern Baptist Convention or the guys that said they were going to. You can find out the list of guys who ain't on the film no more. Go to the Cine Doc and look down there and see the guys who said they're going to be on the film. They don't have nobody paying for their jet.
Right.
And they still won't get up and have this conversation.
Well, do you think it's because...
And they're Orthodox.
But do you think it's because she can afford to lose their support and so she's got enough money in the bank?
No, I don't think she can because one of the things that those people have to continue to make their incomes residual. Right. They don't have any other form. You start getting people.
Yeah. So you're saying you just don't think she cares?
I think, no, for her, I think she absolutely does care about the people that she's talking to. As crazy as she is, as far as she is, I think she does care.
Right.
And she wants to see them do better. And she feels like this might be a way I don't think it's just like.
But she actually believes what she thinks.
Yes.
And she's willing to stick her neck out.
Yes. And
is there anybody in the SBC that's willing to do that?
Tom Askell.
Yeah.
Founders Ministry.
Jared Longshore.
Yeah.
But
Tom Nettles.
But not in the PCA.
I know. What's the guy's name that we had on the show? That was
Steve Warhurst.
C.R. Wiley.
Yeah, C.R. Wiley. But Steve Warhurst, and I say this, and I love that dude because he's out there, he's fighting. Yeah. But part of it is that they hadn't been going to General Assemblies.
Right.
And this is one of the things
that's kind of what happened in Southern Baptist.
Well, that happens.
I think even a big factor is even in the context of T.D. Jakes, like he's willing to mix it up. Like for the most part in the
that's
PCA,
right?
Like that's
Jakes what was like, let's have the conversation.
Yeah, like I show up, you go to have the debate. It's like a no. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you kind of need two sides are willing to do it.
Tom Friel asks a question of John MacArthur.
Yes.
Everybody laughs and everybody freaks.
Yeah.
Right.
And everyone backs
and
away.
Then everybody gets soft.
And I do think there is an element like. We're not like PCA. I don't know the SBC well enough, but there is like that certain level of upper middle class white morality that is like, here's our window, here's proper discussion, here's what we can
That's
debate,
true.
here's what we can have.
Here's the
I don't think T.D. Jakes is sitting there like, oh, I'm an overeducated white guy, and here's a discussion.
No, he's taking the question mic and holding on to it and having a dialogue with the people on stage.
That's because that's Papa. I think you're absolutely hitting on something. Yeah. One of the things that black people and black culture sees is certain type of conversations like, we know we don't talk like that, and we know you're being PC with us. Stop with the BS, and let's talk like we really talk for real.
And that's what I was trying to bring out with Phil earlier, because talking to him about, yes, is there a place for the carefully nuanced make your case? Yeah. Sure. Is there a place for Christian higher academia?
Absolutely.
Is there a place for systematic theology? Absolutely. But there's also a really, really important place for pastors to bring it down to the street.
Yep.
Yes.
And you even look at the last two administrations, Hope and Change, that's all Obama rolled out. And then Trump had MAGA. You know what I mean? And like there was a simple element to the message that everybody could grasp on immediately. You didn't have 1,000 pages of nuancing. We're like, what is this guy even talking about at this point?
But it has to, and the thing that pastors got to get is if you don't get it to the ground level, you failed.
Yeah,
that's right.
You have to speak to the car mechanic. You have to speak to the builder. You have to speak to the painter. You got to speak to the people where they are, which means you're going to have to say things like, go home. Yeah. And then we all laugh and we clap and we say, yeah, that's the message. And they say, but it wasn't nuanced. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's failure to pastor to nuance.
That's exactly right. Which is no quarter November.
And that's how you end up neutering people. Because so the basic idea is you'll preach at this level, which it becomes this nuanced thing where the guy so for example, that clip we played earlier from Dordt, like the guy who's a car mechanic, I mean, to get a sermon on gender and sex, he's like, what is,
are you
got balls, you're a man. You know what I mean? Like it's like basic. And so I think the aspect of what I've experienced in the PSA is broadly this academic-y sort of preaching that's nuanced to like, let's try to bring people along that just aren't there.
And this is why we need to, in order to recover masculinity in the church, it's going to mean looking at someone like Jen Wilkin and saying, you need to stop.
Yeah.
No, you need to stop.
Yeah.
And you say, well, she crosses the T's and dots the I's here, and she's really helppful over here, and this kind of thing. No, she's not being helpful. She needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
She's bringing the poison in. Does she mean to? No, absolutely doesn't mean to. Because could I worship alongside her on a Sunday morning? Sure, I could.
Yeah.
But we have to recognize that it's our friends that are messing this up.
That's right.
It's people who are right next to us.
All kinds of good intentions.
With good intentions, they mean well, and I don't mean them any ill will. But real men need to stand up and say, no, you're messing it up. And you say, well, to hell with the nuance.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's right.
That's not the point. The point is we have hordes of unbelief pouring into the church right now. You got people, did you guys see this list? You remember the Steve Warhurst?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He gave that speech at GA
in
support of this minority report against the Revoice stuff. And the most calm, the most placid, gentlemanly, response ever, reading Bible verses, basically. It was interrupted for being out of order for some reason. And then afterwards, because the moderator let him continue, he was protested for allowing, what was it?
The moderator was protested. Right?
Intemperate language on the floor.
Gotta watch this thing.
And 200 PCA pastors
voted in favor of that.
Put their names on that protest saying that he was using intemperate language. That is insane.
Yeah.
Right? Those 200 pastors should be utterly ashamed of themselves. But that tells you how bad it is. It tells you how bad it is in the PCA.
Right.
Right? And because of what it means is that you have to stand up to people like Wesley Hill and Greg Johnson and Nate Collins and say, this is another religion.
That's right.
This is, you're saying a lot of the same words. It's not Christianity.
Right.
You keep saying the same words about, victims and abuse and all this kind of stuff, but you have bought into another religion.
Right. And one of the effective things that pastors do in all this is they make that clear.
That's what
they everyone says, oh, this is just a bunch of gray areas.
Right.
And pastor's job is actually to make it clear.
That's the pastor's job, to guard the sheep, is you make it clear. You see where it's going and you
go
say,
into the gray areas.
Say, no, we're not going there.
That's
this is taking us somewhere we can't go. And you stand there, and your job then is to take the arrows for having fought someone that, is dressed up like a sheep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
But they're sheep. They look just like us. Be like, no, they're taking us off a cliff.
Yep.
And we have to stop it. And men need to have the kind of courage to stand up and say it in the meetings.
Yeah.
We need to have the Q&A sessions where we talk about real things. We need to have conferences where you talk about real things, and the people who have differences of opinion are allowed to air it and say it. And if you can't do that, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's that time where you go ahead and bring your offers. Don't send them to Paula White. Go ahead and go to Fight Laugh Feast Network, fightlaughfeast.com, and you can give right there at the offering.
Just become a member.
Total site, fightlaughfeast.com or flfnetwork.com or both. Okay. 6 and 1, half dozen of the other.
Crosspolitics.com.
We want a jet, so we got both of them.
Okay. and cross-politics. Yeah, let's get a jet. We need a jet. I tell you what, you guys get a jet, I'll get up here. Okay. I'll be up here. Then I can fly around everywhere I need to go.
It's for the kingdom.
We get a jet. It's a kingdom use, y'all.
And remember, Keith is still looking for a wife. So.
And we're about to get a jet. So
it's about to be one of those. So if you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast to the glory of God. This is Cross Politics. Hey, how they find you? Keep you on Twitter?
Campus Evangel on the Twitter. Okay. CampusPreacher.com.
Ladies, show them that smile.
Campus Preacher.
Show them that smile.
What you do is you email me, contact us at contact@fightlaughfeast.com, and I'll vet you, and then I'll put you in contact.
These are my spiritual fathers. So you want to get to me, you got to get through them.
He will set up the courtship.
Yeah. So book it.
Not only is Keith fit and handsome and loves the Lord, but he doesn't believe Epstein killed himself.